today. My name is Stephanie Peters. I am the chair of the Board of Directors for the Virginia Council on Economic Education, and it is my pleasure to welcome each of you today. We are so excited to be honoring the educators today. The teachers, you are our cornerstone of the mission of what VCEE is here to do in educating our young people about so many of the important aspects of economics, personal finance, and all of those the information skills they need to succeed in life. And so we are here to honor you and thank you for your role in doing that today. So I'd like to also thank the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. This is one of my favorite rooms in the city. I just love it, and it is so awesome that we're able to be here and enjoy this view while we have an amazing lunch today. So thank you to the Federal Reserve Bank, and I'd like to invite Kartik Athreya up. He is the Executive Vice President and Director of Research here at the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. He also serves on the Board of Directors for VCEE and the Executive Committee, and he's just been a wonderful partner and leader for our efforts. So please welcome Kartik.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a huge pleasure for me to be a part of this event. I think what I want to open by noting is that we're here to talk about economic educators. They play a huge role in the lives of really all of us, if done properly, all of us. At a meeting that we just concluded, we were talking briefly about the financial crisis. And in a nutshell, I think one key dimension of that crisis was people not having a clear sense of the possible or the probable or the likely or the reasonable. I think this sense of expectations of what can be achieved in the world in which you operate is one of the really key components that economic educators, I think, always impart, I think, to their students. And I think we all, you know who you are, and I think that's just one little bit that just comes up all the time, and it just came up in a meeting that I was in, so I did want to bring that up. So first of all, we're here to honor the outstanding achievement of the economic educators in this state. We really look forward to this partnership program with VCEE because it basically represents collectively what this room is trying to do. And this is supporting teachers to be their best when it comes to teaching economics and personal finance to their students. So I think there's an obvious piece of connective tissue that binds us all together. The teachers here deserve a lot of credit and applause for their commitment and how they engage their students, making innovative programming. And I think this is one of those things where we cannot understate the attention to detail in terms of what it is that connects content to the minds and curiosities of the students trying to receive them. If it were just so easy as saying some words, putting something on a website, and then taking off, that would be one thing. But I think all of us understand that that's actually not at all what it is. It's about making sure connections end up happening in the brains and in the minds of people, and meeting them where they are, especially when they're young and easily distracted by the world around them. So I think it's just incredibly important. It's hard enough to take an existing classroom lesson and deliver it well, and I think it's another thing to come up with an engaging question that really holds their attention. I mean, so even as I talked about the financial crisis, we'll probably have one at some point in the future. This is hopefully a closed-door meeting in which this will not show up in the newspaper, but I think it's a safe bet to say bad things will happen at some point in the future. And I think what we hope for is that we'll have a cohort of students, thanks to the efforts of the people in this room, that'll be a little better positioned to navigate that world, or ideally never to let it happen in the first place. One of the things that I want to emphasize, maybe this will drive home in a personal way, a little bit, as personal as an economist might normally get, is that so teaching can take many forms. One of the things that the world of economists is kind of really aware of is there are economists. These are people you're never ever going to see on TV. They should never be on TV either. But what's important is that the work that they've done and the students that they've produced in the economics profession really have shaped dramatically the way that we all have an understanding of actually what goes on in the economy. And I just can't say enough about teachers and those people who are very prominent in the economics profession that took time out of their schedule to say, let me actually develop content and curriculum and pedagogy for people, for the next cohort to actually show up. And so I even brought a prop, which is this book. It has double meaning. One, it's written by an economist that is famous for having taken the time to develop students. There's a genealogy of his students. He's a Nobel Prize winner now, but there's a genealogy of his students that's aware, we're all aware of. That's important because we can point to all the descendants of this guy named Thomas Sargent. So if you're a teacher, please understand that the things that you're doing are just huge in the lives of cohorts that come way after you. Okay, so that's very important. The second thing is that the picture on the book has a stone hitting a pond with ripples. And I think that's, potentially cliche, but it doesn't make it untrue. So I think the things that you guys are doing are ultimately things that are creating ripples far and wide, and I think we all can thank you for the time and effort that you take to do that. So with that, let me just give you a round of applause, and hopefully all of us can join me. I'm going to say one more quick thing on the topic of economic education, and that's to mention to you that we in our bank have actually announced a leadership change today with Sarah Gunn, who's, I don't know where she is right now. There she is right there. Let me embarrass her momentarily. She joined the bank in 2012 and has been an important leader and contributor for our economic education content. She is in her own right an economic educator. And one of the things that she's done and been a big part of is invest in what's next. And so the people in this room, I think, have a sense of what that is. Many of you will. Sarah was an important part of that. Most recently, Sarah has managed the training of our Fed ambassadors. We at the bank have a program that is geared to teaching our employees how to talk about the work of the Fed. I mean, that's an important thing, and that's a kind of economic education that happens right under our roof, and I think Sarah has been a very critical part of that. She has an undergraduate degree in economics and a master's of education degree, so she marries the two things that we're basically here to talk about, as well as several years of teaching economics, including AP and U.S. history, too. So I started with talking about the financial crisis, so history is something that's dear to her as well. Her promotion is effective December 1st, and we're really excited to have you as part of the team to work with VCEE. So with that, thank you.
Folks, I hate to interrupt. Great table conversation, even better food, but we have a great program lined up, and I want to make sure we stay on track and get to the main program at this time. Please continue to eat quietly, I don't mind, and you'll not want to miss the dessert if you haven't had that yet, so by all means continue. My name is Dan Mortensen. I am the President and CEO of the Virginia Council on Economic Education, and as many of you know, we exist to prepare teachers in Virginia to effectively teach economics and personal finance to their students. We help to convey knowledge, content knowledge, and provide classroom resources to teachers so that they can teach effectively. And we accomplish this through our network of 9 university-based centers for economic education. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a moment. But at this time, I want to personally thank the Federal Reserve Bank for partnering with us on these Economic Educator Awards, for hosting us today, and for providing this delicious lunch. I want to introduce some of the folks from the Fed, and then we can give them a round of applause to thank them. In addition to Kartik Athreya, who you've met, there are others from the Richmond Fed joining us here today, and I'd like to acknowledge them, and I'll ask that they stand and remain standing, and we can recognize all of them at once. Ann Maharis, I see Ann, she's a Group Vice President of Microeconomics and Research Communications. Ann, if you would stand. Also, Sarah Gunn, who you heard just received a promotion, so congratulations, Sarah, on that. She's here. David Bass, Senior Outreach Specialist. David has been our main point of contact for all the logistics around this, so we want to thank David very much for that. And Alexandra Cornwell is here as well. Would you please join me in thanking them with a round of applause? We really appreciate and value our partnership with the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond for literally all that they do. We have, I think, a great partnership and are very grateful they help us advocate for and promote economic and financial literacy. At this time, I would like to acknowledge and thank the members of the VCEE's Board of Directors who are here today. You heard from our board chair, Stephanie Peters. She's president and CEO of the Virginia Society of CPAs. And Kartik, you've already met as well. All of the board members are listed on your program. We did, at the board meeting this morning, elect a new board member. He is Frank Carter, President and CEO of Member 1 Federal Credit Union in Roanoke. Would all the VCE board members please stand so we can acknowledge and thank you? I am really blessed to have a fantastic board, and the board is really critical to us being successful and us being able to fulfill on our mission. So I'm very, very grateful for all of you here, and thanks for coming. At our board meeting this morning, we also presented the J. Curtis Hall Award to Eric Cotters. Eric is Market Trust Executive at Bank of America and a VCEE board member. Eric, if you wouldn't mind standing, I'll say a couple of comments and we'll recognize you. The J. Curtis Hall Award is presented for outstanding service to VCEE and for promoting economic and financial literacy. You're supposed to remain standing, actually. Eric joined. By the way, Eric is thrilled with this recognition, as you can see. He's a very modest individual, so I'll point that out. But very, very deserving. Eric joined the board in the VCE board in 2009, the executive committee in 2012, and has contributed much to our success since that time, including serving as board chair for 2 years. Very, very well-deserved honor, the J. Curtis Hall Award to Eric Cotters. Please join me in congratulating him. Continuing with introductions, VCEE is pleased to partner with the various universities at which we have Centers for Economic Education. And there are several representatives from those universities with us here today. And I would like to identify them, ask that they stand and remain standing. And once I've announced all of them, we can thank them. First, from Old Dominion University, Ruth Cookson, who's the director of the Old Dominion University Center and is a member of the VCE board. From George Mason University, Jason Dunick, director of the George Mason Center, as well as Kate Scott, who's associate director there. From James Madison University, John Krugel, associate director of programs. And from the University of Lynchburg Center, we have Rebecca Booth. She's the director at the University of Lynchburg. If you could thank them for me, that would be great. And while I'm thanking folks, I wish to thank the members of my staff. We are actually down a couple of staff members, which means we're at about 50% strength. So two individuals who I really, truly want to thank and publicly acknowledge are here with us. Jenny Romero, who's our Director of Development, and Paige Ritter, who is our assistant. Both of them have done an incredible amount of work, again, being two staff people short, in pulling everything together to prepare for this day. We had a board meeting this morning, this event, and we have a network meeting later this afternoon. And I am just incredibly grateful to the two of you for all that you've done in addition to your regular jobs. I'm thankful for that. I'll ask you to stand while I also mention Diane Nyland. Diane is here. She's our stock market game coordinator. If all of you three would stand, we can thank you. That would be great. A couple of other acknowledgments. I want to acknowledge our state partners and friends at the Virginia Department of Education. We are glad to be joined today by Judy Sams, a specialist business and information technology. And Judy, I saw you earlier, but I'm not sure where you're sitting. But if you could stand and be acknowledged. Oh, Judy's standing. Okay. Let's please thank her for being here today. And I haven't seen this next gentleman, but he may be here, Chris Saxman, Executive Director of Virginia Free. Are you here, Chris? I didn't see you, but okay. All right. In addition, there are representatives from many of our other partner organizations who provide us with financial support, and we want to thank them very sincerely for everything that they do. They really make all of our work and our programs possible, so thank you all for being here. Now, I want to move on to the presentation of the 2019 Economic Educator Awards. For the Virginia Council, this is our 31st anniversary of these awards, of celebrating our educators. We know that knowledgeable K through 12 teachers and school administrators are critical to helping students gain the economic knowledge and financial skills they'll need to succeed in life. We appreciate all that you do to make that happen for each of your students. To announce the awards today, I've asked some of the representatives from our Centers for Economic Education to assist me. Nobody wants to continue to hear me speak, believe me. These dedicated individuals not only work with teachers in their region, but they did all of the heavy lifting for the process that got us here today for all of the educator awards. So it's fitting that they're here today. Those individuals I will mention, and then some will come up and help present. Ruth Cookson from the Old Dominion University Center, Rebecca Booth from the University of Lynchburg, Kate Scott from GMU, and John Krugel from the JMU Center. So I want to personally thank all of you for your assistance, and with that I'm going to ask Rebecca Booth to come up and we will begin our awards program.
Good morning. We work every day with Virginia teachers, helping them get our students ready to be more effective decision makers and stronger participants in our economy. Today we are here to recognize and celebrate the creativity of some of the best. We will start with the winners of the mini grants, then innovative lessons and units, and as soon as I call your name, please come forward. And today we look forward to hearing briefly from each of you about what your students have learned in your classrooms. So we'll start with the mini grants. In 2012, the Council initiated the mini grant program. Teachers are invited to apply for grants of up to $250 to assist them in teaching economics and/or personal finance education in their classrooms. The program has provided successful, and each year we receive multiple entries for this. The mini grant recipients submit follow-up reports, which are encouraging and fun to read. It is gratifying to see how teachers are using creative ways to teach economics based on the content or inspiration from the VCEE affiliated centers. Today we will acknowledge one teacher in the mini grant category, and this winner is Logan Stana from Plains Elementary School in Rockingham County. But unfortunately, she is unable to be with us today. We will mail her award recognition to her, and we appreciate her teaching and using creative ways to teach creative thinking using spending and saving in the classroom. So now we will move on to the K through 12 lesson and unit plan category, and we'll start with our third place recipient. The third place Outstanding Economics and/or Personal Finance Lesson Unit, or even a performance-based assessment winner, was a hard decision to make. But today we will recognize one group of teachers who have wrote a lesson that we have found worthy of the third place, and they will be splitting a $250 prize amount. Would Sam Agami and Lindsay Thompson from Princess Anne Middle School in Virginia Beach please come forward? They are being recognized for their middle school Shark Tank an entrepreneurial simulation lesson. And now we'll get to hear a few words from them about the lesson.
Okay, thank you very much. What we did turned out really well. I believe very passionately in entrepreneurship really being the foundation of the American economy. And this is a lesson that's evolved over the years. My partner, Lindsay, has been really instrumental in modernizing and making this even more appealing. One of the things I think we do really well is realistically simulating the process of developing a business idea. We have our students actually develop a pretty detailed business plan where they have to identify, using evidence, that there's a market for their particular idea. They have to do some research to make sure they're not violating any trademarks or patents that exist out there. They have to develop a plan for marketing, how they're going to get the word out about their products. They have to develop a plan after they've identified who their potential competitors would be and how they're going to take market share away from them. So for 8th graders, this is pretty heady stuff, but with the 8th graders' youth comes a lot of enthusiasm, and they come up with some really interesting ideas, from the very conventional to the very innovative. And the new part we did, I've done a version of this lesson for a long time. I've been teaching for 21 years. I've been doing this probably close to 18. However, what we decided to do, and this was mostly her idea, is we developed a business fair where the kids had to come up with a presentation about their business idea. And we got other teachers in the building to volunteer to be venture capitalists to come in and hear their presentations and grade them. And then we choose the best of the best. And we have a Shark Tank assembly, similar to the TV show, where they are up on the stage in the auditorium and actually present their ideas. And we get local business owners and managers to come volunteer from the community, and they serve as our sharks and drill them with questions, and they have to react. So it's a really interesting process. We do it as a culmination of the whole year's study. And we do it in the last week of school. The students, I think, learn a lot about being entrepreneurs, about what it takes to actually develop a new idea and be a success. And I think that's what the American economy really needs, are enthusiastic entrepreneurs. And one of the things about teachers is you always wonder what happens to your kids when they walk out the door. You never know how they wind out. Now, a lot of you are probably going to think I made up this story because it works out really just too perfectly. Just yesterday morning, I stopped by the local grocery store to pick up a salad from the salad bar for my lunch. And the lady comes up to me at the checkout line. It's like, "Aren't you Mr. Agami?" Like, "Yeah." Like, "You teach at Princess Anne Middle?" Like, "Yeah." "You might remember my son Dylan," and say, "Yeah, I actually remember that kid because he was a kid I had in my debate team as well as in my class." Like, "How old is he now?" I was, "Oh, he's 27. Wow, okay. Well, what's he doing these days? How's he doing?" It's like, "You're not going to believe this. He just got his PhD in economics." So that makes you feel good that somebody's learning something about economics, that somebody is at least taking these lessons to heart. So I'd like to thank all of you for giving us this wonderful honor. Ruth Cookson for helping us along the way. She does so much for us. At Princess Anne Middle in Virginia Beach, we have a great school with a great set of administrators. Mr. Buckholtz is representing them here today. We appreciate his support. And we love everything the VCEE does. And thank you so much to Richmond Fed. And like I said, this is a true honor, and both of us really appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sam and Lindsay. Our second lesson plan is entitled, "You Oughter Pick These Entrepreneurs." This lesson was written by Dawn Flora and Ann Minnick, and they're from Otterbein Elementary in Rockingham County Schools. And today they will split a prize of $500. Would you please come forward?
Thank you very much. We're so glad to be here. Anne actually was my student teacher 8 years ago. And we did an economic project that year. Had never done that before, submitted it, and we were here that year also. Since then, she got a job at Otterbein in our same school, so we continue to work together. And we continue to try to do what we can to support economics for these kids. We're in a small school. It's a country school at the base of the mountain. And a lot of these kids have not had a lot of experiences. So it's a great pleasure for us to try to provide those for them. So you ought to pick these entrepreneurs. This came from when we get together with our book buddies, we do a lot promoting reading and cooperative learning. And that's hard when you have first and fifth. But it's fun. It's very rewarding. So they were reading about something about an entrepreneur, and of course they're like, what is an entrepreneur? Good question. So we started talking about what they were, and they were coming up with some ideas. Well, could we be an entrepreneur? Sure, you can be an entrepreneur. Let's work on that. So we started from ground zero, and they had to decide what they were going to make and sell. What materials were they going to be able to use? No, we can't use those. Those are too expensive. We got to keep it down. How much is it going to cost? How much they would sell the product for? Who would do the jobs in the business? What would they call the business? Decisions. They just had a lot to do. So it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of backing up, but it was a lot of real life learning that occurred. And fifth grade had to really step up to the challenge because we're trying to create our product with first graders. And that took a lot of cooperation. But it was neat to see how the fifth graders would explain some of these terms to the first graders. So what did we come up with? Something that every Audubon Elementary otter would want to have to show their school pride. An otter pick. And since we are the Audubon Otters, we decided we would use the green screen, so they had to use some technology, and take pictures of kids. We had order forms. We gave them too many choices, we decided, because they could decide on magnets or a hook on the back. But we had to make business cards, which we put on the back, and then we started selling the product. And then as we got the orders, we had to fulfill those orders. And you got to remember, we got a lot of other curriculum to cover, so trying to get this business in there too was challenging at times. But we did it. Some fifth graders and first graders were fired from their job because green screen's hard. You got to go around those figures just so. But that was okay. They learned that there's maybe another job they were better for. By the time they were done, we shipped out the product. We had a shipping day. We shipped out the product. They had learned firsthand what it means to be an entrepreneur. But Ann and I wouldn't let it end there. A lot of the kids do not know anything about checks. People don't use checks as much anymore. And we wanted to donate our profits, which ended up being $400. We sold these for $3 a piece. And like I said, we're a small school. So we made a check. We made a large check. And we taught them about every part of the check. And we even took the check to our principal, Dr. Todd Johnson, who's with us today, and had him sign it. And they watched that whole process. Then we decided we wanted to give back to the community. So we took our check to the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank in Verona. And the kids actually handed this check to, and we had to explain to them, that is your $400, don't worry. Hand it to them, and they got to see where is that money going that they worked so hard to earn. So the whole thing, there was just so many aspects of it. And as a final bonus to this whole project, on the way home from the area food bank, we stopped at Smiley's Ice Cream. Now, if you haven't heard of a Smiley's Ice Cream, it's the best ice cream out there. And they got to get some ice cream. But what they didn't know was that Derek Smiley, the owner of Smiley's Ice Cream, used to be my first grader many years ago. And of course, my first graders were looking at him like, oh, he's too big to be a first grader. But he shared with them his process of being an entrepreneur and asked them questions. And Ann and I were so proud when our kids could answer his questions about what they experience as an entrepreneur. It doesn't get any more real than that. So thank you again for supporting us. We really want to thank our principal, Dr. Johnson, because it went into the school and involved other things. He really helped us get that accomplished. And we want to thank Mr. Bo Dickinson, who is our social studies curriculum supervisor, who drove us here today for his support too. So thank you very much to everybody. Now on to our first place lesson plan winner. And our first place lesson is entitled Shiflett's Superville, Soaring Together. And this was written by Lauren Shiflett from Elkton Elementary School in Rockingham County. Would you please come forward? And Lauren is receiving a check for $1,000 and will share a few words of her lesson with us.
I'm a little nervous, I'll just warn you. I first want to take the time to thank the Virginia Council of Economics, the Federal Reserve for hosting us today, and also the Shenandoah Valley Economic Education for their support of economic education in the Valley. And also I want to thank Mr. Krugel and my principal, Mrs. Palmer, and also Bo for driving us today. This humbling experience has opened my eyes to a whole new love for economics to encourage our youth and their early financial responsibility. The most rewarding experience as an educator is to influence the learning opportunities of young minds that not only educates, but also inspires creative and collaborative thinking. Superville encouraged students to look beyond the typical money market and place themselves within a collaborative goal of building a city using payment they receive daily. When developing Superville, I wanted to embrace a creative approach, providing students an opportunity to make their own economic decisions. Shiflett Superville, Soaring Together, was a superhero-themed economics unit that lasted approximately 3 weeks. On the first day, I informed the students that the classroom had transformed into Shiflett Superville, and they would be active members of this new society, helping to plan and build a city while simultaneously learning to budget and collaborate as a collective body of consumers and producers. Part of the transformation came with their new responsibility to save for items that were needed for purchase. Students quickly learned the value of keen economic planning, forming a cooperative committee to achieve consumer goals, and money sense regarding earning money. Students earned money when they came to work, which was school, and performed at their best super self. Money was spent when students acted as consumers, paying their daily rent and purchasing their building supplies. By teaching this unit, it became necessary to instruct each student to assess their wants versus their needs and make appropriate decisions with their peers to reach their common goals of building a super city. During this process, the class learned the difference between being a producer and a consumer, had a hands-on practice, learning to identify the penny, the nickel, and the dime, and explored contrasts of the roles with a hands-on interaction with currency. Implementing Superville into my first grade classroom came from a desire to explore a student-led environment involving economics and student collaboration while emphasizing our Rockingham County 5 C's. Critical thinking skills were necessary for students to make decisions. For instance, the students were required to differentiate between the wants and the needs with their economic decisions. And the creativity of Superville allowed the students to imagine themselves as superheroes in helping to build and maintain their city. Collaboration and communication were also necessary for the success of the economic unit, and without working together and communicating with one another, their Superville would probably not have been completed. Finally, the entire unit also emphasized the importance of citizenship in not only city planning, but also in doing what was the best for their city, and how good citizenship is necessary for its completion. Today's society limits our children's access to handling currency. And in today's world of credit, online ordering, and digital payments, our younger generation are not witnessing the cash flow. I wanted to implement an economic society that provided students with a hands-on exploratory experience by purchasing, saving, and budgeting. Collaboration was an important element in designing the city and meeting the project needs. Students successfully met their challenge while developing communication skills, proper economic decision-making, and understanding the exchange of currency. Thank you.
And now we will move on to our Institute category. We also acknowledge an innovative lesson developed and taught by a teacher who has completed a VCEE Economics and/or Personal Finance Institute. Jordan Wiley completed the 2019 VCEE Online Economics Institute. She is from Bear Creek Academy, an independent school in Cumberland, and she is our Institute winner this year for her lesson entitled The Game of Life, a Personal Finance Simulation, and she will receive $1,000 today. Would you please come forward?
I'll tell you, one of the disadvantages of having a gender-neutral first name and doing an online institute is that poor Rebecca didn't know that I'm actually a guy. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? I play women sometimes on stage.
I do apologize.
No, it's quite all right. Quite all right. Thank you so much. I said, there's my icebreaker. See, built in. I will also like to thank the VCEE, the selection committee, the board of directors for this honor. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Rebecca, because had you not told me to, hey, why don't you submit this, wouldn't be here. So I appreciate that. I noticed that in the letter that we received, it talked about whether we wanted to speak about the importance of the lesson or about how students respond to the lesson. And I had a little trouble kind of deciding, okay, which one of those I'm going to talk about. And to understand why, I think it's important that you understand where I work. Bear Creek Academy is listed as an independent school, but we're a private special education day school. Okay? And what that means is that we work with public education students who, for one reason or another, can't be in the public school system. Okay? And that's typically behavior and emotional disturbance. So the students that come to our school have a history of academic failure, behaviors that come with this academic failure, anxiety, a history of defiance, lack of motivation, and most importantly, given that economics is a study of choices, come on guys, study of choices, impulsive and poor decision-making skills. Okay? So, one of the most effective ways to help them experience success in our school is to teach covertly. Some of you may have read the book, Teaching is a Subversive Activity. I see teaching as a covert activity. Okay? And what I mean by that is that how they respond to the lesson is one of the most important parts, I'd say. Okay? Getting them to respond in a way where they don't realize that they're learning is critical. Okay? Because I've got to sneak it under the radar. The more control and the more I tell them you need to learn this, the more pushback I'm going to get from them. So the Game of Life attempts to teach finance and microeconomic principles under the guise of play. I am also a biology teacher. And as we know, across numerous species of mammals, play is one of the most effective and common ways that people and animals learn. Okay? And the learning happens incidentally. Okay? By placing routine financial skills and the larger process of responsible decision-making into the context of a game, the learning becomes incidental to the act of playing. So I want to share a little bit about how my students react to this lesson. So I had our English teacher ask them kindly, a couple of the seniors that I have that have taken the course, to just say a few brief words. So I wanted to share those and let them speak for themselves. One of my students, Devin, who was actually going to be my guest today, but was sick. So he was heartbroken. He was like, I want to go to the Federal Reserve. And I was like, okay, we'll do a field trip. And then sure enough, I'm like, hey, guess what? I got to go to the Federal Reserve. Want to come? We'll do a field trip. Anyways, the thing I like most about the life game is it actually deals with life and how to live, what expenses you might have to come across, and how money disappears in a hurry. Playing the life game helps me create real-life simulation. It is like I am in the real world, but I'm not. One thing I have learned in the life game is how to live life in the future for myself. Another thing I was surprised about is how much taxes I will have to pay. Aren't we all? Another student, Brandon, the things that I like about life is that it teaches you about how life is after high school. The game teaches you how to write checks, how to plan for your future investments, and how unpredictable life is. The game of life helped me to plan stuff after school financially for my future after graduation. I have learned how to make a bank account, check my bank account, how to deposit, withdraw from my bank account, and how to manage my money. The game even helps students learn about how to pay taxes and pay bills. So just two quick observations about what these students wrote. Number one, they talked about the development of concrete skills, which is super important. Writing checks, using a calculator, understanding percentages, managing income and expenses, calculating net worth, keeping accurate and dependable financial records. And then the other thing they talked about was the aspect of planning, learning how choices impact their future, how education impacts their earning potential, how to build assets to increase net worth, how to prepare for emergencies, how to think long term. A lot of these students come from an environment where their parents are thinking about, how am I going to pay this bill this week? They're not thinking about, how am I going to set money aside in a Roth IRA to try and earn some income tax-free and retire? So it's important to get them thinking about those long-term things. And the life game, in which each week is a simulation of a year in their life, where they have an opportunity to know how to pay taxes, but then also to invest, to purchase assets, to have children, and to prepare for all the contingencies that life might throw at them, is one of the most important things about the game. My students face more than the average amount of challenges each day. And we've seen for ourselves, look at the news, how the average person even has trouble managing finances and building wealth, right? And making responsible financial decisions. And these guys are probably going to face these problems for the rest of their lives. And if I can help them to really think about their financial futures, start to plan, then hopefully I've helped them find some stability and security in lives that would otherwise be chaotic. Thank you.
And let's give all of our Lesson Plan Award winners and mini grant winners a round of applause. And now we'll move into our next portion of the awards program, and I'll turn it over to Kate. Annually, the Virginia Council on Economic Education selects an educator from each of VCEE's Centers for Economic Education with a sustained history of commitment and contribution to economic and financial education. These educators have particularly advanced their students' understanding of economics and personal finance over the course of their teaching career. Considerations for this award include leadership, professional development, and evidence of student comprehension. Each regional winner receives an award of $100. The following recipients are Stacy Alderman from Carroll County High School in Carroll County Public Schools, representing the UVA-Wise and Virginia Tech Centers for Economic Education. Stacy, please come forward. Joseph Clement from Chantilly High School in Fairfax County Public Schools represents the GMU Center for Economic Education. Meredith M. Carrera from Larchmont Elementary School in Norfolk City Public Schools represents our ODU Center for Economic Education.
Jennifer Ferris from Jefferson Forest High School in Bedford County Public Schools represents the University of Lynchburg Center for Economic Education. Takesha Anyami from Prince George High School in Prince George Public Schools represents the VCU Center for Economic Education. Heidi Robison from King George High School in King George Public Schools represents the UMW Center for Economic Education. And now to present our Outstanding Economic Educator of the Year, I would like to change the mic with Mr. John Krugel from James Madison.
So I wrote an introduction, and I stole an idea from one of my students at James Madison, who, when giving a presentation, used his cell phone. And I thought, oh, that's really creative. And I'm realizing now that this is probably not a good decision for me. It was a good decision for them, but it's a little small. So maybe they had a bigger phone. Hey, there we go. Yeah, need to get some readers. So, certainly not least here, we'd like to recognize our Outstanding Economic Educator for 2019. Each year, VCEE recognizes one educator who has a sustained history of commitment to economic education and financial education with the students in their classroom. And it is certainly an honor and a privilege to represent the Virginia Council on Economic Education, but especially the James Madison Center for Economic Education. We all really care a great deal about our winner, and she just means the world to us. So I kind of want to say what I said when judging happened, and just, I'm supposed to be brief. I know I'm supposed to be brief, but just let me tell you a little bit about our Andrea. So the greatest measure of a person's character is seeing how they inspire others. And throughout her career, Andrea has been an inspiration to all of her students. Every year at James Madison, we have a market day. We call it the Gem Fair. And every year, Andrea's students are the most prepared. They are the most determined. They are the most energetic. They are some of the most well-behaved. And they are definitely the most entrepreneurial and kind of market savvy of the students. And if we were just looking at the inspiration that she is to her students, that alone would be enough to garner her acknowledgement today. But she is not just an inspiration to her students. Andrea has been an inspiration to teachers in the Rockingham community and throughout the Valley throughout her career. And I'm just going to tell you two quick examples from this semester alone of how much of an inspiration Andrea has been to fellow teachers. Earlier this semester, I was dropping my kids off at their school, and when I was leaving, the principal pulled me off to the side. And my initial reaction was, what does my son do? And so, fortunately, it was not that. The principal had actually taught with Andrea a number of years ago and had said that she saw the fire that Andrea had instilled in her students, that love of economics, of entrepreneurship, of personal finance that Andrea instilled in her students. And she wanted to bring that to her school. And so she started to talk to me about how can we do what Andrea did. Not what the JMU Center, not what VCEE had done. She said, how can we bring what Andrea did to this school? So that's the first example. That was a teacher from years ago that is now an administrator that wants to bring the same stuff that Andrea has been doing to their school. The beginning of this semester, I had a teacher at a separate elementary school reach out to me through an email and said, hey, my daughter participated in this mini economy club, and they went to Gem Fair. And she said, and Miss Nolly, my daughter loved what Miss Nolly did in that club. And she said, I want to do that here. And this was a couple of years ago that her daughter had graduated from that school. And so she said, can we work together to do something like that? I said, hey, we can work together, but I got a better idea. Why don't we reach out to Andrea? And without even thinking about it, Andrea jumped in and gave us all of her material that she uses and really helped that teacher, because throughout the years she has been a teacher trainer for us at JMU as well. She stepped right into that role of training that teacher. And I was telling Andrea about this earlier. That club started off as a once a week every Wednesday club. And they picked the students that are the most at risk at that school. And those kids have flourished with this club. And they have flourished so much so that that school is actually expanding the club. And we're going to go ahead and add another version of the club every Friday morning. So I'll be going there in a couple of weeks every Friday morning, kind of helping to start it. But really, it's the teacher and the work that Andrea has done with this teacher that is living on in a completely different school. And so she has done that throughout her career. She has been an inspiration to all of us. And so she is very, very, very deserving of this award. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to your 2019 Outstanding Economic Educator for the State of Virginia, Andrea Nolly.
I've had a bit of laryngitis, so I'm hoping that you can hear. So it is truly an honor to be recognized as the Economics Educator of the Year for the state of Virginia. I'm grateful that I was allowed to bring my husband, Curtis, my mother, Norma Gardner, and my principal, Janice Churchill, as guests. I'm currently working as an elementary school library teacher for Harrisonburg City Public Schools, and I'm in my 40th year of serving in public education. I have spent 24 years teaching 4th and 5th grade, 1 year of 7th grade, which was enough. And the last 15 years I have spent as a teaching librarian. So I will retire at the end of this school year and feel like this award is icing on the cake. Unlike the students in the state of Virginia today, economics was brought to me as a formal topic at Bridgewater College. And I had George Fitchett as a professor. I was scared of this class. Most classes at Bridgewater are small, but not this general ed requirement, which had about 150 students. George Fitchett would seat us alphabetically, and my name fell in the middle of the alphabet, and I only imagined 75 students in front of me that would distract me. So I told a white lie that I had trouble seeing the board, and I needed to be near the front. So he put me right by his overhead projector, and he placed a cartoon each time we had a class. And I did learn to love economics through that professor. So in 1997, after years of teaching, the Yes Mini Society was brought to Harrisonburg. And I was in one of the first groups who took that workshop and conducted my first mini society. And then in 1998, Martha Hopkins launched the Global Entrepreneurship Marketplace. And my students loved that experience as well. So it was definitely my intention to continue offering mini society to my students. They loved the experience, from our decision making and classroom markets to the field trip to James Madison University and the GEM Fair. Excuse me. Soon after that, Bill Wood approached me and asked if I would consider teaching a lesson in economics that would be videoed and shared throughout the state with teachers who instructed the economic standards of learning. I taught a lesson that Bill had created on federal, state, and local taxes. And I was amazed at how excited my 5th graders became as they had the opportunity to role play members of City Council and decide how money should be allocated. Could they get a new park, an additional policeman, a new fire truck, while not wanting to raise taxes? Students had the opportunity to voice services that were important to them, and they didn't always agree. The film had its debut at Court Square Theater in downtown Harrisonburg. And even though the students who were in the film had moved on to middle school, many returned to see themselves on the big screen. And it was just a fabulous experience for all of those students. Then in the spring of 2001, Martha Hopkins asked if I would consider being a trainer of teachers for Mini Society. To do this, I needed to fly to Los Angeles to attend a 3-day workshop conducted by the creator of Mini Society, Marilyn Kurelski. Now this was very exciting, but also a bit daunting. I was assured every detail would be taken care of. As an educator who was happy to receive a new pen, a new folder, a new pack of sticky notes at a conference, it was quite different to be picked up by a chauffeur who drove me to the Ritz-Carlton by the Santa Monica Yacht Club. I was welcomed by a calling card and seized chocolates on the desk of my room. Before attending a single session, I knew this was unlike any workshop I'd ever experienced. Marilyn Kurelski's passion for Mini Society was passed on to each of us. Several years later, I attended a second Train the Trainer workshop, this time with Martha Hopkins and Lynn Stover in Chicago. So after that first workshop, I became part of a team who trained local teachers to use Mini Society in their classrooms through the Center for Economic Education at JMU. Martha Hopkins brought the wonderful curriculum and songs she developed. I brought the practical piece by using it in my elementary classroom each year. Lynn Stover had experience with middle school and gifted education and shared her marvelous wit and humor. Bill Wood shared his expertise in economics and made the concepts come to life with local examples we could all relate to. The four of us trained many teachers in the Shenandoah Valley and even reached some teachers on the other side of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Martha retired to Florida, and Lynn became the new teacher consultant. And while missing Martha, the three of us continued offering trainings in the summer. So why commit to this program for decades? Well, this program has made a difference in the lives of my students and the students of teachers that I've helped to train. Students look at Mini Society as a real-life experience, earning money, saving, spending, creating a business that is profitable or not, pricing products, possibly working with a business partner who shares in the workload or doesn't. Each Mini Society is unique in the decisions that are made by the group and by each individual. A recent statistic of the percentage of English language learners in the Harrisonburg City School Division is 44.6%, and the only Virginia city with a higher percentage is Manassas City at 48.9%. It takes about 5 years for students to acquire the language skills they need to be successful, especially on standardized tests. But these students understand economics early on: scarcity, needs, wants, earning and saving, buying and selling, and opportunity costs. I could give many examples of students who are new arrivals to the United States with minimum language skills, but could grasp the idea of creating a business and working towards a profit. One example I will give is Anatoly from Russia and Geraldo from Bolivia. Both barely spoke English and did not understand each other's native language, but they were very excited to create a business together and acquired enough English skills to work as partners and conduct markets. They were successful. When I left the classroom to become a librarian, I wasn't certain how I would continue to conduct many societies. Then I decided, with the support of my administration, to offer Mini Society as an after-school club. We offer it to grades 3, 4, and 5. Another person on my staff who had been trained helped me have 2 after-school groups. What is unique about having an after-school club rather than a classroom Mini Society is that students can sign up multiple times, and they do. Some take Mini Society. All 3 years, they are eligible. Last week, I was advertising that Mini Society would begin the first week of December. I asked 4th and 5th graders who had previously experienced Mini Society if they planned to apply again this year. And when some raised their hands, I asked why. Someone answered that they were allowed to make decisions. Another student said it was like real life. The answer I heard most was that it was fun. We accept 45 students in the after-school program. I had students enter the school building in August and come to the library to let me know what product they were planning to make for the next Mini Society. And then they would ask, and when will it begin? Monday of this past week, I began accepting applications. I received 29 on the first day, 14 on the second day, and as of Wednesday at 8 a.m., I had to create a waiting list because the 45 positions had been filled. Former students returned to let you know how Mini Society benefit them. Recently, a student told me she applied to be treasurer of her middle school club, and she could write on her application that she had been a treasurer for Mini Society. She got the job. Another student had really struggled with academics and self-esteem, but really shined in Mini Society. She's in college studying fashion merchandising. A neighbor who recently participated in Mini Society decided she wanted to consider offering a recycling business to our neighborhood. She came to my house to conduct a market survey. After taking all things into consideration, she decided it would not be something she would undertake. But how proud her parents and I were of the effort she made to figure that out. And speaking of neighbors, Anatoly drove through our neighborhood in his bright yellow Corvette and stopped to chat. He was working for a construction company and was interested in dating the daughter of one of my neighbors. I've not seen his car around recently, and while he possibly has not been successful with his girlfriend, I feel confident he is successful in other ways. Another program I participate in is Reading Makes Sense, a financial literacy reading program sponsored by Virginia 529 College Savings Plan. My library has received numerous outstanding books with an economics theme through this program. I have had one lucky participant's name drawn to win $529 in her college account. I thank Lynn Stover for her work with this program and her creative lesson plans. I regret she's unable to be here today. I just attended a session she gave 2 weeks ago at the conference for the Virginia Association of School Librarians. Lynn is always entertaining as well as informative and a wonderful friend. In closing, I want to thank Bill Wood, Lynn Stover, and John Krugel for the nomination from the Center of Economic Education at James Madison University. I also want to thank Bill, Martha Hopkins, and Lynn for reaching out to me and including me in this awesome team of educators. I appreciate my principal, Janice Churchill, for her continued support. And lastly, I want to thank the Virginia Council for Economic Education for this wonderful award and the opportunity to share my story.
What a wonderful group of teachers, and don't we all feel better now knowing that our students are being taught by educators such as this. Just a couple of items here in closing. I wanted to mention that in addition to the awards, the certificates, and the checks that the award winners have received, there's also a letter in there from the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. James Lane, congratulatory letter. Dr. Lane is a member of our board of directors and kindly took the time to write those letters to you all, so that's also very nice. In addition to the teachers, I want to acknowledge and thank those who support the teachers. So as good as our teachers are, we know that behind the teachers there are family members, there are members of the administration, superintendents, principals, specialists, and so on. And I would like to ask family members and administration members if you would please stand and we can thank you for supporting the teachers today. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors once again, and they're listed on your program. If you can take a look, we couldn't do all of this without our sponsors, so we're very grateful for all of them. Award winners, if you would join us for photographs in the reception area immediately following the program, we would appreciate it. For those of you who might have a little bit of extra time, if you want to tour the Fed experience downstairs in the lobby, it's an interactive exhibit that lets visitors explore their connection to the economy, and I think some of you have already been down there. Representatives from the Richmond Fed will meet all of you at the elevator, and they'll escort you down. Once again, if we could, just one more round of applause for our award winners today.